morning, Glenn.
Good morning, Brandon.
Hey, we're here again to talk to you a little bit about a couple of things that are going on in the field right now. Talk to me a little bit about some other concerns that you've got for what we've got going on.
Yeah, so besides the temporal variability and the really slow GDD accumulation, I tell you, we've got a couple insect pests that are starting to bother me. One would be black cutworm, right? And so black cutworm is a pretty common problem in my world. So where I'm from, we call them overflow worms. They basically are a transient disease. The moths fly in, they lay the eggs, typically in some vegetation or in residue. The eggs hatch. They make a living on whatever they can find. You plant the crop, and then they start attacking the crop. The beautiful thing about black cutworm is I always like to tease Sam that they're like a caribou, right? You get an arrow in them anywhere, and they're going to die. Black cutworm is very easily controlled, right? Any of the synthetic pyrethrins, right? Whether we're talking about grizzly 2, tundra, even Arctic, at relatively low rates will control black cutworm, right? I mean, you'll have occasional miss where maybe it's so dry they're feeding only, exclusively below ground and the insecticide's on top, or vice versa, right? You've got an in-furrow insecticide and they're feeding above ground because it's really, really wet. But for the most part, if you've got a synthetic pyrethrin, then you will hardly ever see black cutworm. Right?
Okay.
They are very easily controlled. Now, the other pest that I expect to be a big problem, and we've seen this also, right? So there's a lot of black cutworm in the soil. Universities have collected a lot of data on moth flights. The other pest is wireworm, right? And so wireworm is the larval stage of a click beetle, and they are ferocious feeders. Now, the thing you need to know is on a normal year, especially later planted or warmer soil conditions, click beetles and their larvae, these wireworms, they are very sensitive to temperature. So as it warms up, they move deeper in the soil. This year, because it's so cool, those wireworms are going to be really close to the surface. And we're already seeing this where they're attacking seedlings. And the seedlings are really not able to outgrow the damage because of the slow GDD accumulation. It's a little more complex controlling wireworm, right? Wireworms, if black cutworm is a caribou, wireworm is really more like a brown bear, right? They are really tough to control with synthetic pyrethrins. Those folks that are using soil-applied insecticides are much less likely, right? In-furrow insecticides, though they still may not completely control them, they will typically give a much higher level of control than a broadcast application.
Okay.
And synthetic pyrethrins as a whole are not really that tough on wireworms. So that's just another caveat, right? If you got lighter texture soils, maybe you should think about using chlorpyrifos or some other organophosphate insecticide in furrow. So
Okay. All right. So what should we look for in a field? What are we looking for on black cutworm? What are we looking for on wireworm?
Yeah. So if you're walking through a field and you see plants laying over on their side, typically that comes from one of two things, right? It's either you've shallow planted and the birds are pulling on the plants, trying to get to the seed, right? That's one, or it's black cutworm. And if you see plants but you don't see the worms, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not there. Oftentimes, if you see a plant that's been cut off and drugged down in a hole, if you'll dig around that hole, you'll find that black cutworm down there munching on it because they don't like to be exposed to light. They're pretty sensitive not just to synthetic pyrethrins, but they're also pretty sensitive to temperature and to sunlight.
Okay.
But this is something that your Yield Pro specialist could easily help you with.
Yep, I agree 100%. Is, again, getting out in the field, getting our hands dirty, getting our boots dirty, spending some time walking. We know moth flights are high, so we need to be on the lookout as plants start to emerge for black cutworm. We know our temperatures are a little cooler. Wireworm is going to be a problem. It's the only way we're going to find them is to go hunt for them, dig them up, and identify them, and then make a recommendation of an insecticide to apply. So thank you for your time here this morning, Glenn. Have a good day.
Thanks, Brandon.